Hi, welcome to La Lista, a LatinX writers podcast. Today, my guest is someone that I've known for, I don't know actually, maybe I would say a year, but probably not a year, but just about a year. So if you want to introduce yourself, just like who you are, what you're about, how you identify.
Hi, my name is Raymond Arturo Perez, and I am, on things I submit, I say I'm a gay Latino writer,
Okay.
but gay Mexican American, first generation. I'm a nerd.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, great. So let's get into you. So where are you from? Where did you grow up?
I was born in Glendora, California. I was in Azusa for 5-6 years and then moved out to this small German town called New Braunfels in Texas.
Okay. First time I'm hearing about this.
It's so
Where
fabulous.
is it in Texas?
It's about 45 minutes away from like downtown San Antonio.
Okay.
Maybe even less. Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, it was really, really, I mean, everywhere is racist, but it was really racist. Their town square area was hosting a KKK rally. So this was like 95, 96.
Yikes.
I know. So we lived there for a year and a half. And then we bounced around in San Antonio. And that's
Okay.
where I grew up.
Okay. So what, like, you said you're first generation. So what's like your parents' story? Where are they from? When did they show up here in the U.S.?
My father's from Michoacan,
Mm-hmm.
and then my mother's from Guerrero.
Mm-hmm.
And my father immigrated when he was like 15-ish, maybe a little bit younger, 14, 13. Learned the English language when he moved out here relatively quickly, just to be able to get a job and go to school. And then my mama's mama came when she was an adult. And so my mother's born in California.
Okay. So your dad came from Mexico to California then?
Yes.
And that's where your parents met?
My parents met in Azusa.
Okay.
And
Azusa is for lovers.
Yeah, they met in Azusa. My parents had me when they were teenagers. So my mom was like probably 14.
Oh,
And
wow.
my dad was probably 17. Just under the radar.
Yeah.
And my mom was in a gang, so she was like looking for like really cool, tough dudes. And my dad was rolling up in an Impala, I think, with his buddy.
Yeah.
And my mom mistakenly identified my dad as a cholo. Wrong. He was a huge nerd and was just, as she says, posing as a cholo. And she didn't find that out till later. Then, surprise, I came.
All right. So, yeah, that's interesting. So she was, your parents were teen parents, teen mom, teen dad. And you're the oldest actually, right?
Yeah, I'm the oldest of 3. So it's me. Then they waited about 8 years, had their second
They
child.
learned their lesson, I guess.
Yeah. They did.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I had a younger brother after that.
Okay. So when you were born, like, did they have their own place? Were they living at home? Like, what was that like? Do you know?
I think my dad was living with I think my dad's mom. So my dad's parents had just got their first home in Azusa. So he was there with like his 6 brothers and sisters, and then his mom and dad. And then my mom at that point was living with like an aunt or uncle. My mom's mom died when she was like 13. So like about a year or 2 before I came. And then my mom's dad was bouncing around family 2, 3, and 4 at that time. So she's kind of on her own.
Yeah.
But then my dad got a great job opportunity in that it wasn't in California. And I think they were going to increase his pay if he moved to Texas, to this German town.
So what did he do? Like, what was his job?
He was, at that point, maybe a lead operator. So he printed checks.
Okay. Interesting.
Checks in the mail. Shout out. I think they've closed now because no one gets checks.
Yeah, but that's interesting. I didn't even know that was a job. Did they know anybody out there?
No. They knew nobody. It was really, I think it was several things. It was like a job. Mm-hmm. It was to get out of the drama of Azusa in the 90s, which is really like problematic, racist, and not racist in that like, I mean, sure, like white people are racist, but also like black-brown racism against each other.
Yeah.
It was just not safe. Yeah, so starting a family, landing a job, starting all over for my mom and dad so that they could actually try and make their relationship work out.
Yeah. And are they still together?
They're still together.
That's
so crazy. It's so weird. I still think to myself, like, now having been in relationships, like, dang, they really put in the work.
They did. They made it work. That's what I was going to say. They just made it work. Because it's hard. It's hard being like teen parents, then you move to Texas, start all over again.
Yeah.
Have little baby Raymond. I'm sure he's not making things any easier, knowing you.
I beg to differ.
Okay.
No, I was a very quiet kid.
Oh, okay.
So you gave me a book or like Hot Wheel cars, and I'm good for the rest of the day.
Okay. And then you said you bounced around like San Antonio, right? Mm-hmm. So what was that life like? You know, like where did you live? What were your parents doing for a living? Like,
so my dad ended up staying at that spot, the checks in the mail spot, for a while. My mom ended up getting a job there too once they moved. And then just generally like printing, just like manufacturing.
Yeah.
So like very like labor intensive work, or at least machinery related. Mm-hmm. We bounced from renting a house to owning a house in the small German town to an apartment complex in Leon Valley, a like suburb of San Antonio. Mm-hmm. And then finally they purchased a house, which was like a huge deal.
Yeah, the American dream.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And then that's around the same time that my little sister came around.
And like what year was this? Just so
circa 9/11.
Okay.
Yeah. So 2001.
And so you said your parents, your grandparents were here too? And
yes. Yeah.
And so like do you know what their like thinking was behind moving to the US? Like what was their like immigration journey? You know, how did they eventually become citizens? Like how did that happen?
They're in a rural area of Michoacan, and similarly my mom's also from a rural area. So at the end of the day, they just wanted to give an opportunity for their children. And yeah, I mean, like big picture, like all my uncles and aunts and aunt on my dad's side, like are owners of houses, really nice houses in Texas now, and working and have families. And then on the flip side, so that was like my dad's mom and dad. And then on the flip side, for my mom's mom, it was a little bit more like novella. It was like my great grandma wanting to give away her daughter to like kind of the romanticism and the American dream of the United States.
Yeah.
So that's how my grandma came over and ended up meeting my mom. My whole family is complicated, but
that's fine.
like her first husband essentially, or like her first boo, and then she met my mom's boo. Yeah. And then she met 3 other boos.
Listen, my dad's been married 4 times. See, I forgot one.
Wow.
You don't have to, like, things that get complicated. It's fine. All right. So, like, back to you, you know, you're in San Antonio. So, like, what was, like, little Raymond like? Like, what, who was he in high school? Like, what was your journey then?
He was a mess. No, I'm kidding. Let's see. I think I was a cool kid for a little bit.
Okay.
When I moved into Germantown, totally cool kid.
In what way?
In that I was social. My parents dressed me very swaggy. So was rocking like the Raiders or the Cowboys, depending on who dressed me.
Okay.
Feel it out, like Adidas or Reebok, whatever. So I was killing it. And then, but then once we started moving, that's when it got a little tricky, because it's like, okay, like I'm the cool kid here, but what does cool mean at this next school I'm about to move into? And then moving again 2 more times. So then being like, okay, the cool that I thought was at the other school is not the cool here. And then at a certain point, it was like, okay, I'm done trying to be cool. Like, I just want to blend in and not stick out. And so that was kind of what ended up gradually happening. So by the time I hit high school, I joined band, which is a great place to blend in. And then also be yourself. Huge band nerd, played alto saxophone for 7 years, became drum major. I didn't even know what drum major was. I didn't even know marching band was a thing. I just thought band was always sitting down orchestra style.
Okay, yeah.
And then Texas is football, and Texas is also band. Yeah. So in middle school, when people were like, oh, I'm not going to do band in high school. And I was like, why? And they're like, well, because you got to wear those uniforms. And I'm like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? They're like, yeah, like you don't have an option. Like you have to wear marching band uniforms. And I was like, marching? What?
Did you not see Nick Cannon's Drumline?
Yeah, but I didn't know that. I thought that was a movie. It wasn't until I got there that I was like, first off, like the nerdiness was like maybe a half second there, and then it just went away, and then you're just like, oh shit, this is amazing. And it was so much fun. It was like greatest high school experience being a band nerd. And then I became drum major, so I was the leader of the band nerds.
Not surprised.
That was me. I'm like a friendly guy. I was in the closet most of this time. I didn't mention that. But funny. Hide your pain with comedy.
I mean, deflect for sure. If you're laughing, you're not asking them any questions, you know. So did you guys travel for like this band, like the marching band and all that stuff?
All throughout South Central Texas. And
that's what's like interesting to me, because it's very like, I feel like maybe debate and like a couple other clubs have this thing where they get on buses and they like stay at hotels and blah, blah, blah.
Best. Well,
tell me what that's like, because
we weren't like a wealthy school, so we didn't stay at any hotels. We'd always have to drive all the way back wherever we came from. And
like, what time was this? Like, time of day? Like, when are you getting there? When are you coming back?
Oh man, it depends on where we were going. I mean, I can like name drop a bunch of small towns out throughout Texas, like Conroe. I'm gonna blank out on all of them. Hondo.
And what were these towns like? Like, because you're saying you're traveling around Texas. What are they like?
Super small. I think just going in and out. I say super small in comparison to like Los Angeles. Some of these are still pretty large. But because we're going in and out, we don't really get a good idea of what the culture is too much. Yeah, because we're just going to like the field. So, but most of them are very heavily Latino populated. Okay. Like large percentages of the citizens' population is Latino.
And
Latinx.
So yeah, like talk more about like Texas, like when someone like, I'm sure you get jokes or like people like say stuff about Texas, like,
oh, absolutely. Like, people always give me like this face, like, oh, Texas, and I'm like, yeah, but also,
yeah, tell me what Texas is like. What is, like, how would you describe it? You know,
I mean, I love Texas for better or for worse. It's like everything else in my life, like. Yeah. I love everything, but like I've come to appreciate Texas, and when I go back, I really enjoy being out there. It's very there is a notion of Southern hospitality, and it's in the same space where like racism and homophobia and all these other things exist, but like, but also like the hospitality is there. So yeah. I remember exploring Austin, Texas a lot on my own, going to bars, going to different like hangout spaces, and just being able to strike conversation with strangers in a way that I don't think is at the same level in like a Los Angeles area or other cities. Yeah. Where it's just like, hey, like you can meet another person, grab a beer. It's like very that.
Yeah, because I've been to San Antonio, which is beautiful. But that's about it. I feel like I've been in the other place. I don't remember. Wherever the Astros play. Houston. I've been to that stadium.
Nice. That's awesome.
It was just rainy and windy the whole time. So
that's Houston. that like year round.
We didn't know that. We're Texas.
Rainy
we're
and
gonna,
humid.
Yeah.
Like just disgusting.
But I feel like Texas does get a lot of negative connotations.
Absolutely. Yeah, I got like two things. San Antonio, amazing city, underrated, growing really fast. If you have money and you're listening, you should totally buy property in San Antonio. I'm telling you this now because I think San Antonio in like 10 years will be Austin where it is today. Again, for better for worse, it's like really in touch with its Mexican roots. And the for worse part is cultural appropriation. But
what do you mean by that?
Like, well, if the whole town is celebrating Mexican culture, then like that line between celebration and appropriation gets a little blurry.
Oh, yeah, I know what you mean.
But it's great because not the cultural appropriation, but it's great because no other city in Texas, which again, people have this notion of Texas being, all these things, all these negative things. No other city celebrates that.
Yeah.
So
it's like
openly.
who else is repping like the culture and
Yeah, and
That's
it's
cool.
really, really beautiful. I mean, they celebrate it. I joke that like they keep adding more weeks to it, but they celebrate it for like 4 weeks. Now it's like 6 or 7. I think it's just another reason to party and get crazy. But it's called Fiesta. And it's amazing. It's beautiful.
That's cool. I kind of want to go there for that now.
You should. It's one of the best times to go.
Yeah.
The weather's not too crazy yet. And it really is beautiful. I mean, they go all out for that. And then also I was going to say on the flip side, I just went to, so anytime I go to Texas now, like I always try to femme it up in a way that I don't maybe normally do here.
Yeah.
And so I think even while I was out there, I was shopping for more femme clothes, and I got this like velvet black short overalls, and wore that out to 6th Street, which is a very like straight area. And while I was there, Southern hospitality, this dude came up to me and basically threatened me and said like I need to carry a gun next time because of what I was wearing, that it was too much.
Interesting.
So, as much as I love Texas, there's
It's
always
flaws.
that reality check of being
Yeah.
like, but this is still Texas.
It's scary.
Yeah.
So what did you do? Like you're in high school, you're in band, like you graduate, like what was the next step? Yeah.
My parents never went to college. So that was confusing and not knowing what that even meant.
Yeah, that's the thing people don't really tell you. Like for, like immigrants or children of immigrants, you're fully trying a lot of things for the first time.
Yeah.
Including like filling out your FAFSA and college applications and where you can visit or college visits or where you can even go, what you're thinking of. Like, So what was that process like?
I mean, especially because my parents are so frugal, like everything always felt like a luxury. So like college visits, that seems like a luxury. I shouldn't do that.
I didn't do that because I thought the same thing.
And so that's how I operated and I didn't know not to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, like the example that I tell my friends is like, I think someone who's had family go into college knows kind of general stuff. Like you should apply for a handful of schools and all these things.
Yeah.
And I remember being really excited because I'd done such a great job as a student in high school that I was like, oh, I have this setup to be an ideal candidate for many schools. So I should have a list. And I made like a list of 12 schools. Had that conversation, like that first conversation with my mom and dad being like, oh, I made this list of 12 to 13 schools. And like, these are my dream schools. And then like, here are some schools that I think are a little bit more of a safety net. But I'd like to apply to all 12, 13. And then being like, my dad being like, well, we don't have the money for that. So you're gonna have to choose 4 maybe. And I was like, okay. And so then my strategy completely changes. It went from, oh, let me have, 9 dream schools and 3 safety nets to let me just do the 3 safety nets and 1 dream school.
Yeah.
So that was a bummer because I think I could have got accepted to more schools that were on the dream list. But that's something that like now when my cousins are applying or my brother or sister, I'm kind of that advocate of like, well, here's what I learned. So long story short, I got accepted to the University of Texas at Austin.
And that was your dream school?
That was not the dream school.
What was the dream school?
Dream school was USC.
And what was the major?
For the dream school?
Yeah.
Or for whatever. I majored in radio, television, film, and marketing.
So if you got into USC, what would you have majored in?
Writing.
Like writing?
Yeah.
Just writing?
Well, no, I'm lying. I probably would have done I would have tried to do directing.
Okay. Because, because when you apply to schools, sometimes they're like, oh, what's your major going to be?
Right.
So what were you putting down? Like was it all like writing, directing, like film, television stuff, or?
It depended on the school. But I was putting, if it got that specific, I was putting directing and writing. Yeah. And then if it didn't, just generally film.
Yeah.
So at UT, I studied writing and directing while I was there. And then I also was in the business school. So there I did like marketing and statistical analysis.
And what got you into that side of it?
My dad. The whole thing about being secure and frugal and all these things. So he wanted me to make sure that I had, if I was going to do a creative degree, that I should also have something that would be able to land me a job,
which doesn't hurt,
with a comfy salary.
Yeah. And how did you feel about that at the time?
Oh, so frustrated. But I to some degree at that point still was living to satisfy my parents, and I do have a lot of respect, and they sacrificed so much for me. So it was just like, yep, if I want to do this, it was very matter of factly. It was like, well, if I want to major in radio, television, film, then I obviously have to do the business degree as well. And so I did, but it was like so hard. I did 2 majors in 4 years. And the business school at UT is no joke. It's so obnoxious. Disaster.
Why?
Because I'm gonna make it sound like much more crazier than it really is, but they are one of those business schools where they like to kind of push the bell curve. So only like a handful of people can get A's in the program. It creates kind of like a dog-eat-dog atmosphere. And it's just really, really intense. This is not even a lie. This is like they try to weed out a chunk of the student population in some of the beginner courses, so that only so many students can go into the business school. Yeah. So
what was like how would you describe like UT's film school, their TV program? Like, what was your experience with that?
The great thing is you can take so many different courses. You're not aligned to one track. But on the flip side, it's like, well, then you're not specializing in anything. Yeah. So I took as many classes as I could in directing and like working with actors specifically, which I think are some of the best classes I've taken in regards to that. And I took writing classes, and I took all their writing tracks. Wrote the worst material I've written ever.
Didn't we all?
And in the midst of writing that terrible material, being like, wow, I've never had so much fun.
That's great. So, at least you love it.
Yeah. So I think while I was in school, I was still like, I don't know if this is it. I don't know. I know I love storytelling, but I don't know in what sense. And then it wasn't until I graduated that I was like, no, like those writing classes were everything, and I want to keep working that muscle.
Okay, so you were talking about how you like were trying to enroll in like the film and TV programs. That was sort of the end goal. So where did that start? How did you know, like when you're filling out applications, like oh, there's something I want to pursue?
I've always loved storytelling. Okay. Like since I was little, I'd love to so Hot Wheels were a common gift because they were cheap, 99 cents. So I had, over the course of several years, and all my tios, when they stopped playing with their Hot Wheels, they would give me their Hot Wheels. So I had a nice little collection of Hot Wheel cars. Yeah. And again, if you just give me something, I'm like good for the rest of the day. And I'd get my large cobija and then like throw it on the floor because my parents wouldn't want to give me the
tracks.
The tracks are too expensive.
Yeah. I never had the tracks either.
Well, I ended up getting one, so I'm not gonna lie. They did give me one.
Yeah.
which I'm very grateful for.
Yeah.
Still to this day. But I would like throw up the cobija, and then since the cobija is so thick, it would create tracks on its own.
Mhm.
And I would
Smart.
do, before Fast and the Furious came out, my own like Fast and the Furious sagas. And yeah, and my favorite car was like this pink and green Corvette.
I had
like-
a pink glittery Corvette that was little. I did the exact same thing, by the way. Like I used all my Hot Wheels and just like told stories with them.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
fully like
Romance, drama,
like
action,
sagas,
adventure.
like
yeah.
yeah, like I did the same thing with all my action figures. Or I used my Hot Wheels as action figures and just like they were people, really.
Oh yeah, I totally gendered those Hot Wheels cars in a very
we've grown since
problematic way.
But yeah, I thought the same thing.
Like a battleground. It was like,
Got it. That's
who's
cool.
gonna survive in this car adventure?
Yeah.
And then people would die left and right, and then there'd be one sole survivor, or
Yeah.
maybe two if there was a romance.
Yeah, but that's how a lot of people start with their storytelling. You know, it's like their toys or action figures, like because you give someone like a Mickey Mouse and like a Mulan doll and whatever else was on the dollar menu, and they just will put whatever they think into them. Like G.I. Joe could be anything. He doesn't have to be a soldier. He can be like, and it's interesting how people don't see that as like storytelling and creative stories, but like.
No, that's definitely like, especially as I look back, I'm like, oh, that's totally like when it first started. Because I would do that pretty often, like every Saturday morning when I didn't want to help my mom clean.
I would do that too. And my grandma would be so mad at us because she was like, what are you guys doing here? And I'm just like, nothing, just telling whimsical stories, starring these cars.
Playing with my Hot Wheels.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was that. And then I learned how to use words at a certain point and put them on paper. And so I would then use most of my time doing that instead. The same way I was doing Fast and the Furious with my Hot Wheels cars, I was doing like versions of Shrek and Hoodwinked in my journals.
Got it.
So I like mashed up all the fairy tales into one world and then tell like pages and pages of it.
It's crazy how like the media we ingest is like what sort of forms our storytelling. Just even in the sense of the characters, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then it wasn't until middle school, but it was the ABC block at the time, which was like my favorite, was Desperate Housewives, Grey's Anatomy, Lost. I think those three. Yeah, those three. Yeah. And I was obsessed. And what was great was my parents were too. So we would watch these over like tacos or dinner or whatever we're having. And then just have like these really frank conversations that we would probably never talk about anything that's going on in television. Like rewind. My parents grew up in Azusa in the 90s, and black versus brown warfare was pretty there. So there's just like a lot of things. I mean, this is like a community that was telling them like anyone that doesn't look like you is immediately your enemy. And so being able to have conversations about characters that look like us, whenever that actually happened. And then when even more so when the characters didn't look like us, and being like, well, those people are also humans too. And so having those conversations over the dinner table were like some of the greatest conversations I've had with my parents. And it was because of TV. So
isn't it crazy how like representation and you watching it on your TV screen in your home will like endear you to different kinds of people?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, without like totally throwing my parents under the bus, but yeah, they had an issue with like the Muslim religion, and so being able to see like Muslims on television and question their prejudices and
see the humanity in someone else and be like,
or people with intense drug addictions, and I don't know, it was just really great frank conversations that we wouldn't have had otherwise. And I was like, that's cool, keeping that at the back of my head. And by the time I got into college, I was like, I can marry these two things together, writing and my love for storytelling.
Yeah.
So
that's cool.
Yeah.
It's crazy that we both did the Hot Wheel thing. I
can't believe you did it. And I love that you had a pink Corvette.
I did. She was a princess and she was badass. So.
Yeah, mine was too. And her top was down.
Mine too. I feel like, did we have the same one?
It might have been the same one. Was it like hot pink?
Yeah, but it was glittery.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we did have the same.
Are you sure yours didn't have any green in it?
No.
Okay.
So maybe mine was an older model because I'm a little older than you, but
Okay. Maybe.
yeah.
But that's dope.
That's crazy. But yeah, I used to do that too much, and would have just adventures. And I think that people need to realize that too, because somewhere along the line, that seems inappropriate or like you're too big for it. So then you just sort of like push that aside. But like a lot of kids are just natural storytellers. When your kid is dressing up as like Superman, Batman, and having adventures, like that's a story they're writing. They're everything they're ingesting. They're like regurgitating and like seeing how stories are structured and like the effect that TV can have on like just kids watching it. Like it's more than just like Ninja Turtles. It's like, oh, here's this episode arc, and here's like for the season, and here's the main bad guy, and like, all right. So, you graduate from college. What's the next move?
Disaster. So the business school is so great. They like line you up with recruiters. You like have a job ideally 6 months before you graduate.
Nice.
So that you're like prepared. You probably have a signing bonus. You might have a moving bonus.
Nice.
I mean, one of my ex-girlfriends, I think her first job offered her $90K, and then after her signing bonus and moving bonus, she was like at 120 something. So when I say we have a great business school at UT, I mean amazing business school. Yeah, like I totally recommend it. But here I was graduating and being like, oh no, but like sure, I did this for my dad so that he could be happy and proud, but what I really want to do is write. And so like having to accept that and be like, I'm going to pass up all these recruitment opportunities and job opportunities through the school,
that's no joke,
so that I can be flailing in the film and television industry. All right, here I go. And
just walking away from like cash in the hand.
No, really though. And then so my last semester, I participated in the UTLA program, the University of Texas at Los Angeles program, which is a semester-long program, where you are able to live in Los Angeles, ideally have 1 or 2 internships, take a kind of low course load so that you really can get some experience, since we're in Texas and we're not in Hollywood. And so I did that.
Where did you guys stay? Like, where did you have classes? Where did you like
where all actors' dreams come true at the it's now called the Avalon. Oakwoods. Yeah.
All the child actors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that was fun.
There's a documentary about that. It's called like the Hollywood Complex.
I think I've heard of this. Is it good?
I haven't seen it. Too scared.
Okay.
Yeah. So you stayed there. Where is that, by the way?
It's in I think it's technically Toluca Lake.
Okay.
Or Burbank. I don't know. It's like the borderline.
And
it's across from Warner Brothers.
Okay. And your classes?
The classes I took.
Like, where did you guys have the?
Oh, across the street. So there's like this building, kind of at the corner of one of the Warner Brothers corners, and so we could just walk. But now they've upgraded, and they even have a better facility.
They always do. The second you graduate,
larger facility, so gorgeous, in downtown Burbank.
Okay.
But yeah, so I did that my last semester.
And what was that like? Like, you show up from Texas to Los Angeles, and like, what did you think when you got here? Like, what was your experience there? What was that semester like?
I mean, anytime we had family vacation, like our family vacation was just visiting family in Los Angeles. So I was pretty familiar with Los Angeles, generally speaking, but actually living there, I knew I had to like I knew all the downfalls of like, high rent prices and high gas prices and whatever. The adjustment though for like the biggest adjustment was knowing who my circle was going to be, like my family friend circle, because I grew up with my family in Texas. A lot of my family ended up moving to Texas after my parents did. So coming back to Los Angeles and being like, who are my people?
Yeah, I guess they're a little bit over.
Yeah, so that took like a year and a half until I felt like I was like Los Angeles was kind of my home.
They say it takes at least 2 years before you're like,
oh, well then I beat the system.
I know. Some people do it in 6 months, and I'm like,
that's a lie. No way.
But like a year and a half, 2 years to like before you're like, I live here and I'm not moving back. Like within that time, there's a total possibility you can move back.
Yeah. And a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And I unfortunately, it's usually, Black and brown folk that are the first ones to go because
we don't have parents paying the rent.
Yeah.
Buying us new cars. And
I was hustling like nobody's business. I was like, I guess I'm doing this assistantship that I've never done fashion before. I learned how to sew. I learned how to.
You were really hustling, huh?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I did a 6 months in a luxury swimwear company.
Oh yeah.
And that was
that totally fits.
That was a party.
So you go to the semester. Is it the last semester of college that it is, or because I know other colleges do that and people stay here and then they just stay.
Ideally, yeah. For me, it was. Okay. But sometimes some people go earlier just based on other circumstances.
So did you go back to Texas and like get all your stuff and then decide to move here? Like, what was the like?
No, when I came out here, I like moved. I was like, I ain't going back. And then I just went back to walk the stage.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
So I like flew back, did the whole graduation ceremony.
Yeah.
Stayed for like another day and then came back
and
got here.
And like the semester ends, you graduate. Like, where are you living? What job do you have? Like what was that like? Like to be.
It was not the business school route. It was like, I don't know what I'm doing. My family has no connections to the industry whatsoever. I was living in Diamond Bar, which is like Inland Empire.
How'd you end up there?
My Nina.
Oh, see. Well, again, what helps is if you have family too. Like if you have family in California, that is a good place for you to like soft land for a little bit.
Yeah, my Nina housed me for 4 months, I think it was. That's and I was working for that fashion company, and then I was just like, I need more money and I want my own place. Yeah. And so one of my amazing fraternity brothers was like, hey, my sister is looking for someone with an accounting experience. And I was like, well, I went to business school and I need the money. And that was part of the reason why my dad was like, you should double major just in case. So for a year and a half, I worked at a construction firm for like really gorgeous houses, like really, really expensive houses in the Beverly Hills area and adjacent areas. And I was a part of the accounting team. So I put my accounting and finance into motion, made pretty good money, got my own apartment. I like literally like landed the job, and then I was like, all right, now I got to find an apartment. And then actually my fraternity brother's step grandma housed me in East LA for a week.
Okay.
And she's amazing. And I was like, thank you so much. I will get out of here by Wednesday if you need me to. Yeah. And she was like, you can stay here for 2 weeks. You can stay here. You're amazing. And I was like, no. I want to get out of, like, I'm so appreciative. I don't want to overstay my welcome.
Yeah. And you have to like do it on your own, you know?
Yeah. So got my own apartment in Van Nuys, and then put in my year and a half there. Then I was like, okay, but I moved out here to work in the film industry. So what am I going to do next?
Yeah.
And it was like, well, at that point, realizing like your writing regimen needs to be better, a little bit more intense and aggressive.
Yeah.
I had already started networking and finding producers and searching for the right mentors to guide me.
And how did you go about that? Because you're Mr. Networker to me, just so you know that. How did you go about like I'm sure some of it is just natural talent, but like, what did you do? Like, how did you meet with producers? How did you like get mentors? Like,
I hate approaching people. I hate asking for
favors.
That is a lie. No, I really do.
You're so good at like. I wish I had this kind of confidence that you have.
Let me say that like, I do. I hate asking for favors. I hate approaching strangers. It's like I hate being so vulnerable, and it's like a form of confrontation. And I'm very non-confrontational. But at the same token, It's like, do I want to be working in accounting Monday through Friday, 9 to 6 or whatever? And it's like, hell no, I don't. So I force myself into those situations as much as I can.
Yeah.
And I hate it every time I find gimmicks to like fake myself into enjoying it. So yeah, at the time I was going to a couple mixers. Well, I first I landed another film and television related job as an event coordinator for Naleep. And then I was like, all right, like let's be networking outside of work as well.
Yeah.
And so at the time there was this amazing networking group called the Hollywood Network, WERQ. And they met monthly in WeHo at Revolver.
Which is a nice bar.
Very nice and perfect for networking.
Yeah.
Actually, it's really, really great because they have those cocktail bars and they also have the outside patio. And
shout out to them.
Yeah, well, rest in peace.
What?
Yeah, the dude who handled the networking group for a good amount of time. I want to say 7, but maybe even 11 years.
Oh, wow.
Which imagine every month having to be like, let me make sure. I mean, it seems like a little thing, but
it's LA. You have
accountability.
To twist everybody's arm.
Yes. And no, it's like you got to drag people into the space. So kudos to him. Anyway, it's no longer there, but every month they would do it. And I met so many people that worked in the industry. And that was kind of like my first time really doing something regularly.
Yeah.
And then Naleep became another bridge. And then whenever there's certain types of events, especially if they're writing oriented, I like try to get myself out there. Also, my alma mater, we have like 7,000 plus alums in the greater Los Angeles area from UT Austin, and a good chunk of them move out here because they are working in the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
So I got involved with my local alumni group here. Yeah.
You see, and I'm thinking about this. It's like you, without knowing it, did it the right way. Where it's like you got like a supplemental degree, so when you moved out here, you had like something to fall back on to pay your rent, to like pay the bills, like at least be able to live in LA for the first year or two.
Yeah.
And you went to a big school that does a lot of networking events here. I think for a lot of like, Latinx writers or, other people of color who are trying to break into the industry, it's similar stories. They come here, they don't come from money, they don't come with any connections, and they're hustling to just pay the rent to like,
absolutely.
The way this industry works is like, if you're trying to break in, you have to intern, but
for
also
free.
All those internships are free. So who does that? And again, some people will intern for free for 2 years before they get the gig that gets into the next thing. But like a lot of people can't afford to do that.
Yeah.
So,
which like, if you're listening to this and you're wealthy and you open up your own production company, like
pay your interns.
Yeah. Like pay your interns.
If you're like the Conan show or like any big production here and you have a multi-billion-dollar industry and network behind you, pay your interns.
Yeah. Like I'm always challenging my friends, like at AFI, I tell them like, I have no doubt y'all are all going to be successful. Like, so don't break this promise I'm making you do. But like, also like, we should all have goals. Like, let's start talking, like brainstorming goals about what we can do to give back once we are at that point. And so, we've talked about scholarships and what that might look like. But like also some other stuff unrelated. It's like, well, when you open up your own production company, there will not be unpaid internships. Yeah. That is something that you're going to finance so that when you're asking for internships, you're paying them
so
a
people
decent amount.
Because if people can't afford to do your internship, then you're getting the same kind of people. And the same people are succeeding, and those people are moving up, and they're becoming writers and showrunners and producers and execs, and you're just getting the same crop again. Like that's why with like this thing where like all the Latinx writers, like blah, 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 like, well, what opportunities have you made available for this community, Yeah. Like you can't be complaining about how we can't find them and there's no upward mobility when you're asking people to work for free. Like, and I think that's something that you did well, where you had the degree to fall back on to like make some money and sort of settle yourself in before you could like full-time launch into like what you came here to do. A lot of people, like, that's just not the case. Like, people will come here, try to make ends meet, and then be fighting for their lives for 2-3 years. And you know, one of the ways to break in is internships, and you literally can't do that. So like, that's my whole thing too. Like, if you want like a lot of like diverse, inclusive like companies and show and like writers' rooms and all that stuff, what opportunities you're making available for the people like aren't like you know? Mm-hmm. So yeah, pay your interns. Like, it's not hard. Mm-mm. And I think this whole city runs on unpaid interns. Mm-hmm. And maybe there'll be some political revolution and some law will pass requiring people to do that. But until then, it's literally up to everybody as individuals to decide, you know, what opportunities do we make available and whose work do we value? Yeah. So that's my diatribe for the day.
That's sad.
So work for as an accounting person or events coordinator, right?
Oh, so yeah, then I did events coordinator for Naleep, which was great. I don't toot my horn much, but I did a fantastic fucking job. I did a really great, I had a great team. Yeah. I had a great mentorship. It was great. It was 2015 Elite Media Summit. And then after that, my contract ended and I started to flail again and be like, oh no, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Yeah. And
which is a struggle.
Because
again, like, it's like you got bills to pay,
but I want to be a writer. Yeah. It's like my mantra.
It's a catch-22. Yeah. It's like, how do you break it? It's like, work for free. I can't work for free.
So then I got to do this other thing. So my mentor at the time, well, he's still my mentor, but at the time he was like, my wife is looking for someone to start in production accounting for TV. And I was like, okay, so this is kind of bridging both together.
You had the degree and the experience and you did the networking, so that opportunity came your way.
Yeah. Most of these did, actually. Yeah. So like most of my jobs, I'm very thankful, are because of organizations that I was a part of. Mm-hmm. And I think even more so in the industry, that's like,
it's who you know.
It's for better, for worse. Yeah. And a lot of times,
but the problem with that is people
like, I don't know anybody.
And the people that like know each other are always usually the same kind of people.
Right.
Like
homogeneous communities.
Yeah. So that's why that's another cycle we have to break. It's like,
absolutely,
if you want to be inclusive with who you're networking with, who your friends are, who you're talking to, who you're reaching out to.
Yeah, like the swimwear was through my tia, was a friend from high school. The accounting gig was through my fraternity brother. The Naleep gig was through like a mentor I had in high school who was a member of the organization. And then the production accounting gig was through that job too. Yeah. So I ended up working for 2 years as an assistant accountant for shows on CNN, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
History of Comedy, season 1 and 2, 1968, the year that changed America. I think this was what it's called.
That was a good year.
I didn't even finish. I didn't even finish that production. But I pretty much like did most of it, and found out that I still got my assistant accountant credit, which is nice. Thank you, Herzog and Company.
Come on, IMDb.
Yes, IMDb. So I did that for 2 years. I can totally, like, I feel so confident about running a docuseries TV show, at least. I don't want to do that.
Yeah. But because again, like, what year is this into living in LA at the end of this?
This is like third or fourth.
Yeah. So like so year 3 and 4, like, are you doing what you wanted to be doing?
No. Yeah. No, but I am working. So I had like mini goals. Yeah. And this goal was stay in the industry.
Got it. Yeah. Because it's like you're hustling, you're doing a lot of jobs, you're paying your rent. How do you do that in the industry so you can build from that?
Right. And so this was nice because it was a bit of a marriage of the two things. And what's great, even though I wasn't writing or am not at the ideal place for my career, I was working at a production company and was able to kind of learn things indirectly.
Yeah.
Like I became really good friends with the assistants from the development.
The unpaid interns.
Eventually, yes. They didn't have interns for a good amount of time until the end. And so I learned a lot about like development. I got to sit in like certain edits or cuts of the show and hear kind of everyone's feedback and just be a fly on the wall. Yeah. So that was really, really great. And also just like from a financial standpoint, kind of seeing what the numbers look like for a show of this size, what it takes to get...
What the full-time intern budget is.
Seriously, though. Well, yeah. They did a great job, actually. They did true. But yeah, no, seeing like what it takes to put a show on like this. And it, I mean... By the numbers, it's like, oh, okay, like I could do this.
Okay, so after that, you were sort of trying to figure out what you were going to do. Then what happened?
So all the while, I've been hustling with the writing. I've been really, really hustling. I'm like, okay, let's try to push. Let me try to push myself to the next level. And I was starting to realize that, okay, like I'm churning out these scripts. I did 2 or 3 pilots on my own. I did 2 features and was coming to a place where yes, my writing was getting better. I'm sending out to my mentors, they're giving me notes, kind of getting into the rhythm of that and being like, this is what, like, I'm building the foundation for what my writing life is going to be like. The downside being though that my growth as a writer was so small in its increments that it wasn't enough. I wasn't ready to be going out as a writer or getting my material read and getting those opportunities. And so,
but I will just say, like, I feel like a lot of writers feel that way too.
Right.
And I think we have this myth that like, just because someone got hired on a show that they're
true.
That they're a brilliant writer.
Yeah.
When in reality, it's like somebody knew somebody worked at a company, somebody got lucky, they got a manager, they got an agent that put them up, they were the right fit for that show. And like don't think that like every show has like a team of professional writers. Like every writer there is writing for the first time on a show and don't know how half the stuff works.
Right.
But like I think especially like as Latinx people and people of color feel like we have to be perfect before we can submit, before we can put ourselves up for stuff. Meanwhile, like other people are just half-assing it, getting lucky and getting their first job and working like
right. No, yeah. I mean that's also true. But again, going to like not having the right people and not being able to connect those opportunities. I was like, I need to get better at my writing. Yeah. So, on my second year of working in production accounting, I started to really craft a portfolio that I could submit to grad schools. I sent it to 4 schools, USC, UCLA, NYU, and AFI.
Okay. NYU?
Yeah, which was kind of like the wild card because I don't know if I could handle New York City.
Yeah, because you have to start completely fresh at a new city.
But I was
the most expensive city. Like, you think LA's hard? Like,
I was down for it. Whatever.
Listen, an adventure's an adventure. You're still young. So.
Exactly. I'm like, I ain't got no kids.
Yeah, truly.
So, yeah, but I got interviews from UCLA. I got an interview from AFI. I didn't end up making it into UCLA, and AFI's interview was spectacular. It was really,
so what
really
was
dope.
the process for AFI?
For AFI, they kind of all blend in a little bit together, but basically they ask for like, I think the first 10 pages of a script. They give you a writing prompt to write like a short film piece.
Okay.
And then they ask you, or the way I went about it was, they say like, you can submit a 3-page personal statement or narrative, or you could choose to write 3 1-page personal narrative prompts or something like that. I don't know. I'm saying that wrong, but
yeah, but like
basically I did 3 short stories
Okay.
as my personal narrative
About you or like,
about me. So
I don't mind that actually.
it was fun. I was
Yeah.
like, this is so much fun. I
Yeah.
love writing. So one of them was about, my parents growing up in Azusa, being racist and birthing me, and then watching TV in middle school and being like, hey, we're having these conversations about racism.
Yeah.
And then the other one was about, I don't know, the other two, but they were all fabulous. And I had a great conversation during my interview. So I think they do a round of, they look at all the applications. You get rated once, then you get rated twice. And then after the second time, if you pass, then you get an interview. And so I got my interview, and that's kind of like their last.
And what was the interview like? Like, were you nervous? Like,
I was hella nervous because I had an interview at UCLA a week or two before that, and it was so god awful.
Yeah. Why?
So bad. So I walk in, and I'm not joking. But like, I walk into the room, and this person, did like a quick intro, but she seemed not there. She seemed a little bit absent. In my head, and at least what I tell myself to like feel good about myself, is like, I think she had already made her mind up before I walked into the room, and it felt more like a courtesy interview than an actual interview.
You can definitely feel those.
And so we said hello, and then she said that she was having trouble with her husband post the presidency thing nonsense. And I was like, oh, like, is this coming from business school? Is this like a stress interview? Like, am I supposed to flip it and talk about my strengths? Am I supposed to? Yeah, it was just weird. It was so weird. And I was like, I feel stuck. Like, I don't know what to do. And so.
Yeah, because it's like you go in for an interview to go to grad school, and the first thing they say is like, I'm having trouble with my husband. It's like, okay, but.
So after that, I was like, cool. So we're applying to grad schools next year, and we're just going to do this all over again. But then I went to AFI, and the interview was just so great. It was an interview, sure, but it was also just like a really solid conversation.
With one person or
two people?
Two people.
It was who would be my second year TV writing professor and the director of the program, of the writing program. So we had a great conversation, and I felt so great leaving that spot. I was like very upfront about things and trying to be a little bit more honest. And so I told them that I wouldn't be able to afford the school at all if I didn't get some sort of financial aid package. And that would be a huge
deterrent
factor, into whether I'm able to actually go to the school. And to my surprise, though I wish they would have offered me more still, but they offered to pay half.
Nice.
And I got accepted also, so obviously. So that was tough because I was like, okay, so I'm going to pull out a bunch of fake money under my name that I have to pay back at some point.
Yeah. And how much is AFI a year?
I think it's like 54 or something like that, somewhere in the 50s area. But then AFI is one of the four programs that I applied to. It's the only program that kind of really, really pushes you not to be working because it's so intense of a program.
Yeah.
It's very, very intense. And having been in it, I would not recommend working. It'd be dumb.
Yeah, but and it also opens up like if that's not like something you can do, if you need to have a job to supplement, then like,
which I did.
Yeah.
So it's 54 plus living expenses.
Yeah.
In a city like Los Angeles. So I was really, really nervous because that meant I would be pulling substantial amount of loans, but
and you're not working for
2 years. So, and I worked until the first day of school. I was like, screw that. I need to get as much money.
This is a business school. They're not gonna. There's no job offer to check at the end.
Yeah, no. There's no recruitment for my manager.
Maybe there should be.
I mean, they have pitch us. Yeah. I mean, they're doing a fantastic job.
So how'd you make it work, if you don't mind me asking?
Loans. The scholarship was nice. I applied to another scholarship outside of AFI.
Mm-hmm.
I should have, in retrospect, I should have even done more, but time is limited.
Yeah.
And that, I have a relatively cheap apartment that I've lived in for 4 years now.
Yeah.
I plan on staying there until I get like a decent gig.
Mm-hmm.
I don't live close to campus, so yes, I'm saving money. Yeah, just trying to keep expenses low across the board.
Yeah. Just budgeting and
my butt off.
Just like, nothing new.
Yeah.
So what is the AFI experience? Like, what as a writer have you gotten out of it? What's worked for you? What hasn't? Like, tell me, like, for anybody that's thinking of applying, like, be like, these are the things you need to know about AFI.
I went because I needed more structure as a writer.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically with television, because I got a lot of feature instruction back in Texas.
I feel like TV's, like, within the last couple of years they've been turning more in that direction, like film schools, but it's still
not there. No. I mean,
I think I took 2, maybe 3 TV writing classes in college.
Oh, that's great.
And that was my major and my concentration. And we only did 3 classes about TV.
Right.
And I'm like, that's what I want to do. Like,
yeah, even having gone through the program, they are aware of it. They're working on it.
Yeah.
You take TV classes in your first year and your second year, but I still think it's not enough.
Because that's what I've gleaned from it. It's like, it's more feature based, like.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, for sure. But yeah, so I wanted to do that. I wanted really it's the story structure, and then on the flip side, networking. It's just like AFI, USC, UCLA, NYU. They all have really great networking.
Yeah, that's a reason to go.
And the name means something. So, that was a big part of it.
Okay, and so like you're graduating soonish.
Yeah.
What do you feel like you're walking away from having attended AFI? Like, what did you gain? What do you like? What work do you have? Do you have like what work have you produced? What's that been like?
Well, I have 4 pieces in my portfolio that I'm pretty confident about, and I'll continue working on from now till September before I start working on new projects outside of school, on my own at least. So I have a horror film that I wrote. It's like a demon-related horror film.
Spooky.
Spooky. It gets real crazy.
Okay.
And then I have a musical that I've been working on. It's called East Broadway, the musical. And it takes place in Long Beach and features 3 black and brown best friends who are sailors and have 24 hours in the gay streets of Long Beach. Cue romance. Cue Spanish music.
Cue
Spanglish. Yeah, it's like so it's so gay. I love it. And then I have like an indie drama that's like Little Miss Sunshine but Mexican American. Yeah. And then and I have my TV pilot, which is set in San Antonio, Texas, and features a band geek. Most of them are all versions of me at a different age.
That is all writing,
Yeah.
We're writing our own stories, and in that we tell other people's,
Yeah.
So with AFI, like I know they have like different concentrations. They have like the fellows of directing and producing and all that stuff. Like, did you get anything produced there? Did you?
Yes. So the first year, and the reason why it's so intense is there's this amazing thing called cycle films. So the first year you're responsible for creating 3 cycle films. And it's the one chance, or it's the one time that you're required to work interdisciplinary. So you're required to collaborate with your other disciplines at the school. And it's 3 short films. One short film is pitched. The idea is pitched by a director. The second short film is pitched by a writer, and the third short film is pitched by a producer. And as a writer, you're able to write on all 3 films or co-write or story edit.
Yeah.
So I officially wrote 2, and then story edited 1.
Yeah.
And then what's great is you can see your writing in motion and
there's a lot of learning
see
from
what
that.
works and what doesn't. I mean, one of the benefits of the first year is having narrative workshop. Sorry, not narrative workshop, narrative analysis. And so you get a certain amount of weeks to write, produce these short films, and then for 45 minutes you go up on stage. You're not allowed to talk, and your classmates kind of
shoot darts at you.
Yeah, for real. And it's great. It's like the best thing ever. I think by the time the third cycle rolls around, you're kind of like numb to it, but like the first 2 are just so great. Deep for the cuts. Drama. Yeah, it's so great. Like I remember one of my worst notes that I got while I was in cycle 2 was one of my fellow gay AFIs, which is what we call the gays at AFI, said that my brown queer story was a little generic. And I was like, ooh, that one hurt real bad.
Was this person white?
He was white, but he was also right. So dumb. So dumb.
We were in sync with that.
I know.
So
he was so right. And that's why it hurt, was because it's like, fuck, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And are those like short films going to festivals?
No, the first year is primarily practice.
Okay. So so you don't consider that part of your portfolio?
No.
Okay.
No, because we're not allowed to distribute those.
Interesting.
Technically.
Why not?
Because they are meant to be practice. They are meant. While many people don't experiment that much, it is an opportunity for you to try something that you might not normally try if you're distributing it to a bunch of people.
Yeah.
So it's great. I mean, it's really awesome, and there are people that I collaborated with that I am excited to have that chance to collaborate with again. Okay.
So it sounds like the first year you did some like production stuff, got together with the whole team.
Yeah, that's on top of your writing courses. And the writing courses are no joke. So it's really intense that first year. And then the second year, you have the option of doing thesis film, which is like it's like the other chance to work with other people, but it's not a requirement for writers, which is fabulous in my opinion, because I did go there to work on my portfolio. And so...
And are the thesis projects can those be distributed?
Yes, those can. And
I'm assuming most directors decide just to do their own writing and...
Yes. And that's where it's like, well, do I need to be in a thesis film if the director wants to write and direct their film? And so it's about, I think in that situation, it's more about like, well... Are you guys interested in the same tones or themes or story elements? So for me, I just wanted to focus on my portfolio. I wanted to take another elective, get another script out if I could, and I did. So
and that's a good thing about because you try in your own time, your free time, to do the writing, to do the work, to have stuff ready to submit. But if you go to like a grad school, if you go to AFI, that is your job. So then at the end, when you graduate, you have a portfolio of things to submit, things to show people. If someone was like, oh yeah, like I love Raymond, like send me something, you already have it ready and it's already been like peer reviewed and like and like your teachers have looked at it and you're like have been working on it for a big chunk of time. So
and the best gifts of like AFI are the fact that like my cohort is so gifted and they are strong writers and they're also great at giving notes. So I kind of have a built-in group of writers who I know now very, very well, having been in workshop with them for 2 years, who I can reach out to and be like, hey, I'm working on a new script. Can you give me notes on this? And, vice versa. So that's really great. Yeah. And I think as we advance up the ladder, those are the people that can recommend you and,
You're the networker, I'm telling you. Well, that is you.
Organically. That one's organic.
Yeah. You don't make it a bad thing, though.
I mean,
'cause
it's
like,
yeah. No, you're right.
because it's like, listen, you could be a writer sitting in your living room writing and just be hoping someone will come knock on your door and be like, hey,
Right.
we need you. Get over here. You're going to work on this show. Or you could like do the writing and like pound the pavement and have people know your face, who you are, what you're about.
Yeah.
And that's something that you shouldn't be. I think as like, again, Latinx people of color, we're so like conditioned to be like, to like not want to show off or like insert ourselves in, you know, especially in an industry that's so predominantly white and like centered in that way, that we don't always feel like we can be that comfortable, that welcomed, like, you know? So and it is a labor for us to sort of like insert ourselves in places that, you know, not everybody might look like us or have grown up like us, but, you know, it only does us a service to like at least try to.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
All right. So I want to know, do you have any Latinx writers that you admire that you want to shout out that I should interview for this podcast?
Latinx writers. I mean,
who do you love? Why?
I think Stephen Canals is the bee's knees.
Mm-hmm.
He's so
doing
great.
the work.
He's doing the work,
Yeah.
and it's so awesome to see. I just watched the trailer to the season 2 or the teaser.
Yeah, for Pose.
And it's just like even just seeing that clip and knowing that it exists, like that there's a show again that's highlighting
and
our communities.
And it was his writing to like put this thing on television to be like, this is what I want to talk about. This is what I have on screen. This is the representation I want. And it also took like a mega producer to be like, okay, I'm doing what I like, but what else is out there that I can, you know, use the pull you have in the industry, use the power, use the resources you have to uplift voices that we don't really hear from. And like, you know, I think he's a great writer and everything he's done is amazing. And at the same time, like if someone hadn't been like, I want to work with you, I love this, let's make it happen.
Right. Yeah.
Like Pose wouldn't be here. So,
you
know, it's a partnership, you know, like we have to help each other out, and people also have to like see what's lacking and what they want to move forward with.
Absolutely.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah. One of my buddies who I worked with in a leap for a brief moment was Nancy Mejia, who actually went through, so we worked together at Leap, and then she went through the AFI Directing Women's Workshop, and is now a writer. Oh, I don't know. I think all of this is out in the open now. So yeah, no, it is. It was on Facebook. It's out on the open. So she did the first season of Vida, and then she did, she's doing The L Word.
Cool.
Which is going to be so awesome. When I heard she was on there, I was just like, this is so cool. Another thing where, again, it could be, you know, it could be a homogeneous writing room.
Yeah.
Or it could be like Nancy Mejia kicking ass and taking names.
And that's the thing, like, you know, like Tanya Sriracha, like made a room where it was like heavily like queer female Latinx writers, and work begets more work.
Yeah.
So once they have that experience in that room, then they're free to move on to have their own show, produce their own thing, write on a different show. Like, you know, so that's why when people are like, oh, well, we're looking for writers for this thing, they could be like, well, there's a whole writer rooms from Vida, from Insecure, like grab them. Like same thing with like.
But if she didn't, it's like, well, then we wouldn't have those like it takes someone putting their neck out. And
like same thing with like Ava DuVernay, you know, she only has female directors, and those directors, it was a lot of their first time gigs, and now she can't rebook them for the next season because they're already, because again, people are like, oh, we're looking for like black female directors, and then Queen Sugar has 12 of them,
right?
And then those people are constantly working now because they just need the one opportunity.
Yeah.
And it took someone to be like, I'm going to go out of my way to make sure that this room is all female, like all black, all Latinx, you know. And even within that, we have our own work to do, to be like, you know, who else within our community isn't being served? What other Latinx writers can we uplift to then have the next show? Because there are stories we don't even know that are happening,
right?
Just because the writers aren't in the room, you know.
Right.
So we have to do, that's our work to do.
I also wanted to give a shout out to the Clubhouse. So,
Oh yeah.
So I joined the.
I saw you guys at the Hollywood Reporter.
Yeah, May magazine.
Yeah.
I put it on my resume.
Hey, again, the networker.
Yeah. So, but this is shout out to Albert Fayano, who's always looking out for me. Actually, he's always like, "Hey, there's this networking event, you should go." And he jokes he's my manager, but honestly, like, he's done so much for me. I think he is my manager.
Yeah, because if you're talking with other Latinx writers,
yeah,
you are going to tell each other about things you didn't even know about.
Yeah, and so about a year ago, he was like, "Hey, I'm trying to get this directing fellow second year. I was the first year, Max, to go to a co-mixer. It's Black Gay Brunch, which is primarily gay Black film and television writers, and the Clubhouse, which is primarily Latinx film and television writers, gay as well. And so they were doing this joint thing, and it was like an open brunch. And I didn't think anything of it. I walk in.
Just another networking event for the networker.
I was like, okay, like, cool. I'll meet people.
Yeah,
awesome.
Again.
It's whatever.
Yeah.
And I walk in and see this room filled with like, I don't know, like 60, 70 people, all Black and brown, all gay, all working or in the industry in some capacity. And I was like, wow. And I got like super emotional.
Yeah, because you're like,
this exists?
Didn't even dream that this could exist.
Yeah, this exists. And not just that, but like, and they know each other and they're supporting each other and there's a community here. And I think that's what's really special about both of those organizations as well as other organizations that are out there. So I met so many people that day. I had so many great conversations. And then I was like, cool, I got to go back to my, writing routine for AFI. And then a few months passed by and Moises Zamora reached out to me and was like, hey, so the Clubhouse only has or had 11 original members. And it was, again, it was started because they felt like as gay Latinos, that they were alone in the industry, and the times that they did meet each other was because they were going for the same gigs, and it always felt like they were in competition for one another.
Because there's only one spot for us,
right? And we're going up against everybody for this one.
Like we need
diverse
diverse writer. It's like, all right, do you mean women? Do you mean women of color? Do you mean like,
queer? Like it's a hellscape.
But meanwhile, they have like 8 white straight writers who are like but they need the one diverse voice. So we're all fighting for that.
So it's a mess.
Yeah.
And they were like, we could let that continue, or we could be a community. And so the 11 of them became this fellowship where they hung out, and it's a social aspect as well, but also be like checking on each other, keeping tabs, giving feedback on writing, like doing all those things to make sure that they were even more better prepared than they would be alone. And so that's great. Moises comes, says they're opening up the Clubhouse for new members for the first time. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. I applied, I got in, and they've been like the best gay big brothers I never thought I would have. And they're all fantastic people, great writers, and hustling. And so that's really encouraging and inspiring.
And we're everywhere. That's the thing. People are always asking where the Latinx writers are.
If y'all need a list.
Everywhere. That's what, like the
La
same.
Lista.
That's the same. But that's why I made this podcast, because it's like we think as Latinx writers we're so alone.
Right.
Like I'm creating this platform so we can get to know each other, so we can learn from each other. And it's also like, so when people are like, well, I don't know any Latinx writers, I'm like, listen up.
But with that said too, on the flip side, it is like, getting into the WGA means you're having to go through a barrier. And one of my classmates, Bea, was looking at the WGA website, and you can kind of search for writers based on certain demographics. And so out of curiosity, she was like, oh, like, you know, how many at least self-identifying gay Latino writers are there? And there's only 40 in the WGA of the whole thing. And so to be able to know, or at least begin to know intimately 13 other ones are all in one space is really, really dope.
Yeah. And you know, the WGA also, because, you know, there's this whole thing, everybody's trying to get staff because of the breakdown with like negotiations with the agents and whatever.
Right.
And it is like that thing of like, you know, sort of like where are the paid interns of like the WGA, you know, like it's great that all these people are talking, getting each other work and backing each other up, but how are they creating the opportunity to make sure that they can create a pathway for people who are Latinx writers trying to like
get in there,
get even like to be part of the union, you know?
Yeah.
Like that is also like, you know, if the burden is on the people to get in, and same thing with the room, same thing with the interns, you know, how are we all extending a hand to make sure that, you know, it's inclusive? Because, you know, that's what inclusive means. It's like you're doing the work to make sure that it's accessible to as many people as possible and not people that just look like you know?
Yeah.
But I did like that the Hollywood Reporter did shout you guys out with a bunch of other groups, because that's the other thing, you know, how much press do like white male showrunners get? We all know their names. We all know like every show they're working on, but you know, there's like 40 Latinx writers in the GA, and like, are they all being interviewed? You know, like,
right.
Like that's the other thing. Like you get power and currency in this industry by being profiled, by, you know, getting interviewed, by having your face on screen, you know? Like how many writers do we have on the Tonight Show that are just like white writers who only work behind the scenes, but they're up front talking to, you know, what's his name? Seth Meyers, you know? But like, is the same thing happening for us? Like,
right.
You know, like, you know, has the team behind Vida been interviewed on any of those shows? Or are they just being interviewed in diversity summits and Spanish language and Latinx-based media markets, you know? So I did like that the Hollywood Reporter was like, you know, sort of shouting you guys out to be like, just so you know, this is where to look, because these people are doing it for themselves, you know? So what's the big plan after AFI? I know it's an annoying question to ask somebody that's about to graduate, but like, what are your aspirations? You know, like, what are you aiming for? Just so the people know.
At this point, like at the top of the list is just like not freak out.
Yeah.
Because I think that's an easy thing to get into. But I have like I'm a planner, so I have like an A through J plan of action.
Yeah.
And it's intense, but at the top of the list, ideally, is to be working in a writer's room. And if I can land a job as a staff writer, dope. If I can land a job as a writer's assistant or a writer's PA or whatever, like wherever I can squeeze in there, like I will. So that's the top of the priority list. But I also, as we've been talking about, like I also got to pay the bills. So if it comes to it, I don't mind doing, you know, either assistant accountant or even a step up for a bit just to pay the bills and create some cushion for rent and pay my debt that I just accrued. And or day play for smaller productions. Yeah.
So again, you know, like if people are listening and they're like, you know, how can I create an opportunity for Latinx writers? You know, you have a queer Latinx writer here who just needs their foot in the door to be able to do that, you know? Like this is part of the process. If you want more Latinx writers, you have to create opportunities and bring them in. So
give me a job.
Yeah, no free internships here. Where can people find you? What's your social media? I know you're very active.
I don't know what you mean. Yeah, I'm not active at all.
People want to know all
No, there's this person
drama,
who's imposter.
All the pics, all the going-ons, all the music recs, you know?
If you want really good music recs, you should totally follow me on Instagram because I post them without anyone wanting them.
Yeah. But it's the Spotify. Like I can't even hear the song.
I know.
I have to
I
click
wish.
through.
I think there's other phones that. Well, I don't know. I'm missing something out in technology.
Also, but also Instagram will give some people features and then not others.
Right.
Like I can't have post to stories. I had it. It went away, and I don't know why.
Well, that's weird.
I know. I hate it because sometimes I want to be like you and post to a story to let the people know.
Well, maybe it's a good thing because I keep thinking that
You're
like
using
people
it
are
up.
just muting it. But
I come in and out.
okay, that's fair.
So yeah, what's your handle though? Instagram, Twitter.
It's like by Raymond Arturo.
Okay.
So like written by Raymond Arturo.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm on everything.
Yeah.
Like if you throw it out there, it's probably a yes.
Any Latinx queer networking event, you will see him.
I try my bestest. Yeah.
Yeah.
So probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just Latino and just queer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like my secret mission, undercover.
Okay, here.
For the Hollywood Network when it was still going, that networking group that met monthly in WeHo. It was like totally like a gay white boys club.
Yeah. It's a WeHo.
It's WeHo, yeah. So my secret mission was always to like slightly brown it out a little bit more than it already was, brown and out. Yeah.
But that's doing the work too.
Yeah,
Seeing a
it was
space
like
you're invited to, inviting other people.
Seeing my other friends who identify as gay and Latino and being like, hey, like I know you hate networking as much as I do, but like we can use the buddy system and go together. And also like it is all men, so it's like inviting my lesbian amigas and being like, hey, you should come. Yeah. It takes not that much work, but it does take a little work.
Yeah, you have to decide to do it.
Yeah.
Which is the bare minimum, really. All right, so I like to have the guests sort of help me title the episode because I want this to be like an inclusive podcast, a podcast where we'll have the title up and someone else will be inspired to be like, oh, that's like me. I want to be interviewed or I want to find out about this person. But also for someone to look and see like, oh, they're not telling my story. Like like they're looking at the description. They're like, oh, I haven't been featured yet. So this is like fuel to get people to like have volunteer to be interviewed. I want you to help me fill in for your episode, for your story, the blank of, if you were going to call this like Raymond, a blank Latinx writer,
Yeah.
So what identities, what descriptions do you think you would add to that? And feel free to play with it however you want.
A gay brown nerd.
Okay, nerd's important.
I had a conversation with my friend Marwan.
Okay.
And he says that I'm totally just posing as a nerd and not actually a nerd. But I disagree. What do you think?
I'm on the fence.
Okay, well, F you both, okay?
No, I mean, I think
I did the 7 years as an alto saxophonist. I think that qualifies.
Well, again, you can just like you can identify as a Latinx writer, you can identify as nerd. Who am I to take that away from you?
I earned my badge.
Yeah. But yes, okay. So
but also, if any gay Latinx nerds out there
slip into your DMs,
they could totally slip into my DMs. They could slide.
I keep saying slip, and I don't know why. Yeah. Like someone's slipping and falling into a DM, into an inbox.
That's sad.
Like, how did I get here?
I just accidentally got into your DMs.
Yeah.